We had to stop in Lyon due to the strong currents. It has rained for weeks.
You've got to move over more. He's really coming at us. Pleasure boating in December is, after all, quite unusual. I'm Maya, and this is Aladino. In mid-November, we converted our 28-foot sailboat into a riverboat, and we started going north, from the Mediterranean all the way to the North Sea. In front of us, we had 2,000 kilometers, 200 locks, an upstream current, and the onset of winter. Join us as we navigate the inland waterways during off-season. This is North Through the Continent. We're going north through the continent. For almost 2 weeks, we had battled against the currents of the Rhone River. At some points, we even wondered if we'd make it at all. You see this huge whirlpool here, Dini? We're at 4,000 RPM on the engine. We're making less than a knot.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
But now we were finally here. The end of the Rhone River. We had made it.
Welcome to the Saone River. This is where we will proceed our journey. The Rhone has ended here and the Saone now begins.
We were hoping that the comparatively smaller Saone would be easier to navigate, but whether or not that would actually be the case remained to be seen. There were still a few more whirlpools and visible signs of current than we were really hoping for, but would worry about that later. For now, it was time to celebrate by exploring the city of Lyon, the junction between the Rhone and the Saone rivers. Happy! Happy! So happy! If you ever visit Lyon, and especially if you visit from the river, you're guaranteed to notice the Basilica of Notre-Dame de Fourvière. It looks over the whole city and is dedicated to the Virgin Mary, who was supposed to have saved Lyon from the bubonic plague that swept Europe in 1643. Like many European cathedrals or churches, it feels both dizzying and relaxing to step inside. Art swirls around every available surface, an overwhelming spectacle, but there's also a damp coolness and cavernous silence to calm the senses. Behind, and it's a very lovely trip through the city between all these old buildings and under all these old bridges, and it's pouring with rain, which is a bit unfortunate. It kind of makes the view a little bit more gray, but this is such a cool section of the river, and fortunately we're making 3 knots, which we did it sometimes in the Rhone, but not all the time, so hopefully this continues.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to bore most of you guys because we repeat it every day, but for those who are interested in the canals, it's actually valuable information. And we had to stop in Lyon due to the strong currents, which we thought would have ended by finishing the Rhone and entering the Saone. But it has rained for a week, so it was actually just as crazy. And the low bottom of the Rhone had to close because of it. There are certain thresholds where navigation is just interrupted, so we had quite a cozy stay for that while. And when you're resting in a harbor and you have electricity, you can hook up the heater. You get quite lazy, but yeah, we've gotten a bit itchy now and it's time to continue. So we had a dry period of a few days and therefore the current is slower now, but even the Saone is still a bit tricky, definitely has a little bit of current. Not too bad though, 3.5 knots, and the more kilometers we put in our wake, the better it gets. And in about 350 kilometers the river finishes and then we will be entering the canals. And I think the challenge of the canals is that you have many locks slowing you down a bit, but no more current.
Cozy and happy. We're so dry here. Aladino did such a good job of making a cover out of the old sail we found in Port Saint-Louis. I've got hot coffee, and it's actually not too cold today. It was quite cold last night. It was around 2 degrees. But now, what is it? Maybe 10
no,
degrees?
but still 7 also feels better than 2.
Anyway, temperature is relative after a while, I suppose. The new chapter was now beginning. Would the Saone River be relaxed and easy compared to all the challenges of the Rhone, or would we still have many trials ahead? So far, there were still a few knots of current against us, but it wasn't overwhelming. We were very optimistic. Until, that is, we arrived at our first lock.
First lock on the river Saone, but there doesn't appear to be a dock, so while they are preparing the gates for us, I'm just here on idle forward, and it keeps us exactly in place. Once the light turns green, means free entrance, because I've contacted them and they are preparing it for us.
Check out how much water is coming down from this weir. There is quite a current there.
Yeah, totally. That's why I put it in neutral, but then as soon as it pushes the bow away, put it in forward again so it gets the bow in. That's how our prop walk does.
Yeah.
Take it out again.
And the gates of the lock are now open, but the light still isn't green, so these things always take forever. We soon found out why the light wasn't green. A commercial barge was heading upriver, and we had to give way for it to enter the lock first. Still no sign of the commercial barge, hey?
No.
Oh my goodness. You're gonna give our subscribers nightmares.
I hope the lock keepers watch our videos.
The annoying thing is there's no dock to tie up to, so he said that we have to go behind this other boat.
Yeah, only that it's getting tricky to stay exactly in place here with the current, so I think I'll just go do a loop.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on in those offices, but I'm sure not a friend of the lock keepers for now.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly it is, but they really aren't friendly to pleasure boats. And I mean, part of me understands it, but it also just kind of sucks. I mean, we also have to pay a permit to be in the canals, and then now when there's not even a dock and we just have to like balance ourselves in the river flow to wait for some commercial barge to come in front of us, and we're not even allowed to tie up in the lock before the commercial barge arrives. It just makes you a little bit bitter after a while. Anyhow.
We would have gone through by now and they could have prepared the lock a second time.
Yeah,
but
totally.
This is how they always do it, and if it takes an hour sometimes because they have AIS and they see all the other barges except us, they let you wait an hour.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Half the people dying while the rest of
Okay, we just caught sight of the commercial barge now, and it's honestly a bit terrifying. It's a huge one. Where are you gonna maneuver so that we pass by it?
Oh, I won't scoot over more because the lock is over there. He should
Yeah, no, he needs to move over a bit. We're well out of his way. You've got to move over more. He's really coming at us.
Okay. Depth is good too.
Okay. We're good. When the barge finally passed, we maneuvered into the lock behind it. It's not a big deal having to wait for a lock, and I don't want to sound impatient, but we were a bit annoyed that there was no dock, and we were made to maneuver in strong currents for 45 minutes while the lock sat empty. Perhaps this is an energy-saving measure, since I'm sure it takes some power to raise and lower the water level in the lock. Whatever the case, it was now over, and we could continue to focus on floating safely up with the lock. The Saone River doesn't actually have floating bollards like the Rhone does in its lock. Here instead there are multiple bollards leading up the wall, and you have to move your lines up as the water level rises. The scenery was grey, but we were happy to be dry in our cockpit, and we were making good progress. It's amazing the difference a season can make. I remember coming down the Saone River in July 2 years ago. People were swimming, the current barely moved, and the sun was hot. But now we felt like intrepid adventurers, moving through the grey wilderness alone in this desolate landscape. The seasons make for very different stories, but both have their excitement and their charm.
Dark in half an hour. There's a lot of docks and campgrounds around here, so I think we just keep going for half an hour and see where we are. But yeah, I have an idea. Not far from here. In this section of the Saone there's a few old locks and they're not in operation anymore because by placing new ones they were able to cut the number of them down, and also they made the length of the river a bit shorter. At the beginning I believe it was around 400 kilometers from the beginning to Lyon, and I think it had like 9 locks. Now there are only 5 locks and the kilometer is about 50 kilometers shorter. So 350 in total, and we are at kilometer 60 right now. Not very far yet, but it's not as cold today. That's a good one. And we are making good progress compared to the Rhone. We're going at 4 knots. Current is definitely less.
Or just sit beside me and never leave.
So far, the Saone hadn't been the sunshine-filled, easy-breezy, romantic canal cruise that we were dreaming about while fighting our way up the Rhone. But it wasn't too bad either. There was some cold rain, but that's what you'd expect for December. There were some frustrating moments at the lock, but we got through it just fine. There were some currents, but nothing too bad, especially compared to the Rhone.
It's getting real dark in here. Feels like I've been here 1,000 years. Could you bring some light to me? Or just sit beside me and never leave?
That night, we tied up to a dock next to some empty fields and a deserted restaurant. It felt rather desolate, but that's also to be expected. Pleasure boating in December is, after all, quite unusual. And unless you're looking for some Type 2 fun, it seems wise to save river adventures for warmer seasons. But still, there was something kind of special about feeling like we had the whole river to ourselves. Well, ourselves and the barges, that is. Join us in the next episode when we take a pause to be with our families for Christmas, and we actually end up spending a lot more time at the dock than we ever planned for. Thank you so much to all of you for watching. The feedback we've been getting on this series has been amazing, and we're so happy to have so many of you following along this journey and leaving comments, asking questions, telling us about your own plans. An extra special thank you to our patrons, without whom these episodes would not exist. I cannot stress enough how big of a difference the patrons' input makes in these videos and in our lives. We've been able to upgrade our camera equipment and just cruise for longer in the season rather than having to return to work for over half the year, and that really allows us to make these episodes as good as possible. So thank you for your support. Would also like to say a very special thank you to these folks who really go the extra mile to make sure these videos keep happening. We will see you all in the next episode.